got to show you the t-shirt I wore on the 4th of July at the Morgan Parade. So there it is. It says, "Don't worry, America, don't worry. Israel is behind you." A lot of cool things going on in this world and a lot of disgusting things. So do you want the good news or the bad news? I'm preaching to the choir here. You all know what's going on. I just want to bring up a couple of things and come follow me, but I also want to talk about current events, things that are going on. First, I want to show you this cool, I bought this little Bible through the KJV store, King James Version store. You can go online, www.kjv.com or something like that. This is cool. It comes with its own little zipper cover. Of course, it doesn't have all the Bible dictionary and the topical guide like we have. But the thing I like about this is that it has in red the words of Jesus himself. I wish we had scriptures like that had that. Very, very nice, very compact Bible, both the Old and New Testament. I have a smaller version even that I use on trips and whatnot. Make sure you take your reading glasses. But, you know, I'm kind of a Bible fanatic. I have several copies of the Book of Mormon as well in different formats and whatnot. Wanted to share that with you. I had the best lunch. So I smoked, well, last fall we caught some lake trout, which really aren't trout. Mackinaw or Max, you know, that's the proper name for them. They might be a char, I can't remember now, but they're not a true trout, but some of the bigger lakes hold these. That's why they call them lake trout. And Flaming Gorge has some big ones, and some other places, Jackson Lake has some big Macs. So they're kind of fun. But the ones, you know, 15, 20 inches, oh, they're so good. I've learned how to fillet a fish pretty well. It takes a little bit of practice, but once you get it, it's pretty fun. So we caught some Macs last fall. Not the big. I actually think we caught a couple of big ones. Yeah, we did, and took pictures and threw them back. But some of the eater ones are so good. So I brined them and then put them in the Traeger and smoked them up. Oh. And what I like to do is just then flake them and have them for, you know, on crackers, cheese, or, you know, just with a cracker, just all by itself. The other thing I like to do, and what I did for lunch today, is I smoked up a bunch of these and flaked them up, put them in the fridge, and I've been eating them. So if ever I cook rice, I'll cook extra. I'll smoke these trout or these Macs up and flake it out. And then, so the way I do it is I leave the skin on. I'll fillet them, but leave the skin on. They're let out like this, and they'll have the skin on the bottom side, and then I'll put them on tin foil in the Traeger, and then they just basically just comes right off the skin once they're jerked in a sense, but I wouldn't say jerked, but smoked, and oh, so tasty. And then I flake them up. The flavor's great there. So what I do is I have a little bit of rice. I put a bunch of the fish in there that's already cooked, already done. And here's my weakness. Then there's a local chain of they're Polynesian folks that do that, but it's Mo Betta's. And if you get their teriyaki sauce and just a little drizzle on that, stick it in the micro, or if you want to heat it in a pan for like 40 seconds or whatever in the micro. and then just kind of stir it up so the flavors all mixed together. Oh, so good. I should have shown you a picture of it, but I devoured it just moments ago. So that's been fun. The other fun thing we've had going on, the good news, the garden's doing okay. Some of the plants, we had a late start, no question about it. But our strawberries are, man, they're good. And we've had a really bumper crop. So we've been freeze drying strawberries, which our grandkids just love those. And they're so flavorful and so good, the freeze dried. But, you know, you can't help but pound the fresh ones, you know, just as you're going. It's like, you know, one for you, two for me, one for the pot, you know. So good. And our blackberries and our raspberries are going to be killer. Our apple tree's doing really, really well. Probably the best it's ever done since we've lived here. We've already had some peppers, some jalapenos, jalapenos. We've got some other peppers going. Tomatoes are doing great. Hopefully they'll ripen. We've had issues with that. Probably too much water, but we've really been careful on that. And the greenhouse is helpful too for some tomato plants in there. The temperatures get up there and they stay up there. And I think that I can already see some ripening, which is amazing for us. Because I don't know, we're beginners at this, but we're making an effort. We're really trying. We really are. And it's been good. That part's been good. I bought a bunch of cherries. I had, you know, you can't freeze dry grapes, at least. And I thought the same thing with cherries, but these cherries turned out so good. They're a little chewy, so they're not quite freeze dried. We'll probably have to refrigerate or even freeze them. But, oh, and they're the Utah cherries. We didn't grow these, but I bought them from a grower. And of course, that's an early crop, right? Those in apricots are pretty early. Oh, but so good, so good. So that's been kind of the fun part. The downer, I'll tell you guys, this world is crazy. It's crazy. All prophesied, in my opinion. And you know, sometimes this comes off as arrogant because, you know, I'll say something like, well, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, you'll see what's going on, or you'll hear commercials, or you'll see a movie or something, and you'll know the subliminal messages. And once you've seen or heard, you can't unsee it. And sometimes that comes across as arrogant, or I know more than you do, or I'm better than you. And I don't want to do that, because everybody has a different gift and different ability. But I really do feel like my purpose right now, by my purpose, not just something that I think is fun and I enjoy doing, but real meaningful, God directed, Holy Spirit directed, is to be a source of information. Now, there's so many sources out there, and a lot of them aren't good and a lot of them are wonderful. I just want to be a little niche of that. And a lot of it's my opinion, but you know, there's a strong evidence that the Lord's allowing Satan to reign. Now, we talked about the Sounds of Freedom movie. I had one comment on this channel saying, I don't know what you're talking about. The circles I'm around, everybody believes in that in the church, that there's this. And she brought up, you know, abortion and the gods of Moloch and Baal and things like that, and that they still exist today. And I'm not sure if she really understood. I think it's a she. It could be a he that made the comment. I can't remember now. But I just made the comment, yeah, we definitely don't go in the same circles, because the media, the mainstream media, and even, just, I wouldn't even say media that has a leaning one way or another, which is really hard to find. But this movie, Sounds of Freedom, the Timothy Ballard story, is being touted. Rolling Stone magazine, MSNBC, CNN, all these, Fox, they've all just kind of poo-pooed it. Like, you know what? It's just a conspiracy kind of thing. It's not really happening. And many in the members of the church, particularly in the West of the Western United States, in Utah, they just go along with whatever, they see on their on their news feed on their phone. Most people don't watch news anymore. I'm watching it less and less and less. Get my sources elsewhere. But I've said this again, I've said this already, and I'm going to say it again, that if you bring this kind of stuff up in church, in a church setting, Relief Society, priesthood, Sunday school, that, you are going to hear crickets, and you're going to get opposition, and you're going to get like, why are you bringing that kind of stuff up? Well, why don't I bring up some more things? Here we have the cluster bomb issue, where the President of the United States has said and admitted, yeah, we're going to give them cluster bombs. We're just, when this war first started, and both sides have been using cluster bombs. Cluster bomb is just a mini bombs within a bomb. It's like having a bomb that has 100 or 1,000 hand grenades in it, kind of thing. And it's very destructive. But that's war. That's war, right? So both sides have been using these things. But it was so interesting because, is it Saki? Is that her name? The previous press secretary? When this war started, she was the press secretary, and she said, this could be horrific if cluster bombs are used, and could, go against, this could be a war crime. And now, fast forward a year or two, and our own president said that he's going to provide cluster bombs to Ukraine against Russia. We also have this big debate going on. Ukraine, Zelensky wants to join the UN. That's going to be a disaster. The cluster bomb issue, back to that, is that this only escalates things, which you don't want to escalate, because eventually what you're going to end up with is nuclear war. That's where it goes. And then nobody wins. Nobody wins that war. These are very, very, very trying times. And picking these sides, and see, the media has pushed and pushed and pushed the side of Ukraine. And Russia bad, Ukraine good. We wear the Ukraine flag pin, we do this, we do that. Why do you think that would be? Why do you think that would be? That the media would push that. And we've even had it somewhat in the church. You can sometimes hear some subliminal messaging that let's pray for the people of Ukraine, minus praying for the people of Russia or people anywhere. Now, I'm not here to defend Putin, but Ukraine is so corrupt. And you know what? I'll probably get in trouble from YouTube for saying some of this stuff. which is another indication. Why would they care? Why would they care what we say concerning one country over another? But there are a lot of corrupt politicians and other individuals that have used Ukraine as a laundering country facility. And we have bioweapon labs there. We have all kinds of things going on in Ukraine. We know so much about the first family, if you will, just totally ignored about their connection to Ukraine. It's crazy. It's crazy. So naturally, they want to protect their investments, their thing. And so, then out goes the narrative. And you can see it. You can feel it. It's the same thing with the jab and the other. Now you have Saturday Night Live and others making fun of the jab, making fun of the doctor, who I can't really say his name because then YouTube will, if I say anything negative about him, but he's shorter and he kind of talks like this. That having the kind of a left side of comedy, if you want to even call it comedy anymore, making fun of that is huge. It's huge. It's now becoming more common knowledge how we were lied to by its effectiveness and its safety. And the skit, you can Google it, I think, and find it. It's pretty incredible. Saturday Night Live, and type in what you want concerning the jab, and you'll see it. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny because it makes fun of, let's get the jab every day, and even though you get the jab, you can still give the virus to anybody, and you can get the virus from anybody, but get it. Pretty comical, but you just hear crickets. It's like, well, let's just pretend that's not, really what happened. Well, I can't pretend that. Too many people I know have had blood clots, heart issues, all kinds of things. And the common denominator is, myocarditis is huge in Australia, New Zealand, among infants. And the increase started in 2021 and 2022. That's when the big increase was. Wonder what could have caused that. So this is continuing, right? Still pushing. Now, you have, which, when you hear it, when you see it, when you have an athlete, a professional football player that collapses on the field, and they say, gosh, what happened? And he goes, well, I can't really say. What does that tell you? I can't really say, what it is. And we all just kind of, nothing to see here. Let's not talk about it. Yeah. In France, we have these huge riots, destructive riots. And this isn't a Black Lives Matter kind of thing. These are immigrants of a certain religious and social status that have infiltrated and been welcomed by the UN and global elite to come into a particular country, and basically they don't like how the country is that they immigrated to. They didn't assimilate into the country that they came into. They brought and kept, and all the religious and here again, got to be careful, but they are ruining that country, and it's becoming unsafe. Now, France is really trying their hardest to paint a good picture that everything's okay, but it's pretty tricky. It's pretty tricky. You gotta be careful. International travel, you gotta be careful. You gotta have eyes wide open. Now, we've traveled to Israel and did last fall. Feel very, very safe in Israel, but there's some crazy things going on there. I want to tell an interesting story I just heard this morning on the Temple Institute channel. The IDF, Israeli Defense Force, there's a Samaria city of Jenin, and it's a terrorist hotbed, or a place that terrorists have really done some damage. So the IDF decided they're going to go in and clean house. And when they clean house, it's awesome. They know how to hunt down terrorists. They know how to identify them. They kill them. And then they destroy their home that they lived in and level it as a message, right? It's pretty cool. But here's the interesting thing that happened with this situation is the IDF goes in, and there's a rabbi that's basically assigned to different groups of the IDF. And so if you go to the end of the book of Numbers and other places in the Old Testament, and with David later on, the Ark of the Covenant is sometimes taken out and is part of the battle, against the Midianites and then the Canaanites and other oh gosh, can't think of them right now, but other groups that Israel was commanded by God to go over or go and take them over. And they would lead out with the Ark of the Covenant. And usually it was the high priest that was in charge. Well, in that tradition, the IDF, just a week or two ago, they had a rabbi with the scrolls, with the Torah scrolls, leading out. He said a prayer, referenced the Old Testament, referenced the God of Israel, Hashem, leading them forward to conquer their enemy, to conquer their foe. And a lot of the IDF are non-believers. They're not Jews necessarily. They're not even believing, but they still have that ability to invoke the name of God. And they don't have the Ark of the Covenant, but they have these sacred scrolls. And in that format, those scrolls go out ahead of them to defeat these terrorist groups. Philistines is the other one I was thinking of, the enemy of Israel. And there's others. But anyway, so the Amalekites. Yeah, there's others. So anyway, that's a cool story to me. To have an army, a modern day army, invoking the name of God to go before them to conquer their enemy. I think that's really cool. So we have that. We have major corruption in so many governments, but here in the United States, we just celebrated our Independence Day, July 4th. Having been in the Freedom Hall in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, having been in places where they're just hallowed, they're sacred, seeing the Liberty Bell there and seeing and reading and studying and seeing what was at stake here, and that they placed their names and their sacred honor and everything for this big cause of freedom. And then to see that abused, that freedom abused by leaders, and the corruption in our government is so thick and so deep. I honestly don't think we'll ever see an honest election again here in this country. That's how pessimistic I am about it. If you believe in any polls at all, Donald Trump would crush anybody, both Republican, Democrat, crush. And I'll bet you, I hope he wins. It's not that I think that Donald Trump is everything, but he is more religious and more spiritual than probably anybody we've had in recent history in the office. And he hasn't always been that way, from what I understand, but he gets it. He gets what it means to do God's will. Now, he might be rough around the edges and he might be this and that, but I don't think he can be bought. I don't think he can be influenced by people complimenting him or blowing smoke up his skirt. You know, that's his Achilles heel, in my opinion. But he can't be bought by the other means, the corrupt, real corrupt things that go on as our current leadership is. It's bad. It's bad, folks. It's bad. So here's the thing. Preparing for what's to come, I focus a lot on the physical. I do. Food, water, electricity. I have solar. House basically runs, particularly this time of year, it not only runs itself on power with batteries, backup. So during the day, I'm feeding into the power company, getting credits. Be careful if you ever do this. It's expensive and you're on the hook. You got to go in eyes wide open. There's not, the financial benefit isn't all that great, you know. But here's the thought process I have with solar. If you have the means and you're okay, you can basically trade your power bill for your payment of what the solar will cost. But you got to be careful and you got to study it out. Now, without a battery system, I don't really see the benefit of it, because if the power goes out, even if you have solar, but you don't have the battery backup, you have no power. Now, the other thing you got to be very careful of is these solar companies that say, oh, we'll pay you, or Rocky Mountain, or whoever the power company is, here where we are, it's Rocky Mountain Power. They'll pay you, $4,000 or $3,000 for you to sign up. Well, read the fine print on that, because the only benefactor of that is Rocky Mountain. So yeah, you get some money up front, whoop-de-doo. They can have access to your power. So if there's an outage or a brownout kind of thing, they can come in and suck your juice out and then distribute it. Well, if you're okay with that and you need the $4,000 discount or whatever, or they give you a check, that's fine. But I chose not to do that. So now if I need Rocky Mountain, I can access it. You know, if there's snow all over the panels and there's no sun for a while, yeah, I'm going to need it. But the last few months, you know, power bill's about $10 and the house is running. Next time I'll show you the little thing that shows the house is running itself on the solar. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So, but that was a big deal. I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. It took me a long time to kind of study this out. I am no expert, but I feel like I'm helping, you know, so that if all the power goes out, I'll have power and I'll be able to help people, you know, if they need to charge stuff or whatever. I don't want this just to be about me, you know, this is just to share it. But I feel like I'm doing something. And then, of course, food storage, gardening, the greenhouse, hopefully we'll be able to produce stuff. Oh, Sue made the best spinach salad the other night, last night and the night before. Spinach from our garden, strawberries from our garden. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. And it was just, there's just something about eating from your garden, right? And like I say, we're not experts at it, but we're trying. We removed a lawn to make our garden bigger, our garden area bigger. I would also recommend having areas of just flowers, perennials, just for beauty and for bees and for all kinds of things, you know. I don't know. They just add. There's just something. So, yeah. But focusing on the physical sometimes just seems like it's just money going, and we all can't do that, and that's difficult. But what we all can do is and it just sounds so trite, but I'll just say it, prepare spiritually. And what I mean by that is doing God's will. And so we preparing physically and spiritually, to me, it's one and the same. I don't like separate those things, but my focus has been lately, last several years, more on just blending those two things together. Lots of time on trips or preparing. You know, I used to be the best trip planner for our family. It was probably the only good thing I did as a dad. It's just, you know, because I work so much, and I hate the movies that show the dad just working, and the kids, you know, going to play in a game, but the dad's too busy. There's so many of those. And I always just go, that was me, you know, that was me. And I just, you know, I feel a sense of guilt for that. Oh, but could I plan a great vacation? Usually they were really busy, like early in the morning till late at night with, you know, all kinds of stuff. So great memories of that. And I'm probably a little harder on myself than I need to be, but definitely, you know, Earn Daddy Earn was what I felt I needed to do. And you know, probably have some regrets that way, but even like now, vacation to me is like, if it doesn't have to do with ancient worshiping of the great Jehovah, and then later on Christ in the flesh, and then the resurrected being of Christ. If it doesn't have to do with that, I'm kind of not interested anymore. And so our focus has changed. Things happen. We get into this mode of our bodies are winding down, but yet we still want to do some things. Our pocketbook is dwindling. um, I don't know. It's hard to find the sweet spot, and I guess that's kind of the bad news. Part of the bad news for me, I just get frustrated because there's so much I want to see and do, and there's just so much going on. When the apostles are there with the Savior in the garden, and Christ, I think, is speaking to himself as well, that the spirit's willing, but the flesh is weak. I think he was talking about himself as well as his apostles, and to be cognizant of that, to acknowledge it. We live in a fallen world, and it's all part of the plan. And so this idea of preparing spiritually is trying to, for me, is trying to blend the physical and lift it up to what the spiritual would be. Because you still have to, pay the utilities. You still have to buy gas for your car if you have a car. You still have to pay for kids' educations and do things, and yet, study, come follow me, and go to the temple, and do these things. It's finding the balance, but really a balance isn't like both sides are equal. A balance could be like this, and we tip the scale in favor of Jesus every time. To me, thinking of balance, that everything is equal. I think that's been part of the problem with the church and its growth, is trying to, acknowledge all this social justice shiz, and make sure that everyone feels loved and blah, blah, blah. It's just garbage. And so in trying to balance things, really what you're doing is you're going like this. And Jesus is not getting the weight. He's, if this is Jesus, the world is getting all the weight and all the worldly things, and Jesus is just kind of out here, and he's further away from us. It's like the Sermon on the Mount, when we talked about this before, but when I think this is one of the funniest things, but blessed are the peacemakers, and remember the life of Brian, and by the time the message gets back to Brian and his family, they're like, what did he say? What did he say? And he said, I think he said, blessed are the cheesemakers. And then there's this conversation about what that really means. It's super funny, and it sounds a bit sacrilegious, but it's so true. The further we are away from Jesus, or if we balance him so he's so far up here, and all of our weight is on this side of the world, the more distorted the message gets. And so that's what happened in that scene of the Sermon on the Mount of blessed are the peacemakers. By the time, if you're so far back and you're so far away, or you've balanced Jesus right out of existence, you're going to hear blessed are the cheesemakers, not blessed are the peacemakers. So those are some of the things that are going on in the world today. I think sometimes we do need to take a break from the news, but I don't think that break can be too far or too long. And I also think that we have to be careful of our news source. If it's anything that's just for the masses, it's all programmed. It's CIA. It's this Operation Mockingbird. All this stuff is true. It's been verified, where the media is controlled for a message to be given out. And once you start hearing that message, getting kind of back to the first of this video, once you hear and see what they're trying to do to you. Now think of our education system. where now it's more important to tell a young child that you can cut something off of your body if you choose, and you should be allowed to do that. That's more important in the education system than reading, writing, and arithmetic, or history, or whatever, That's the most important thing. You have whole companies that have even Chick-fil-A fell. They have this whole department that makes sure that everything is socially justified, depending on what the norms are of the day, and make sure that everything is done so that nobody gets their feelings hurt, and there's safe places and safe spots for people. It's all such a tragedy. It's all such a tragedy. So we have to recognize that these things are going to happen. They're going to get worse, and they're going to continue. We have to be as prepared as we possibly can for it. Now, don't get discouraged if you can't have all the, the stuff. I'm obsessed sometimes with being prepared, and I know that. I know it, and I think at times I'm like, did you really need that other generator? Well, it was on sale, and I have the space for it, and I thought, you know what, I should probably get that. Probably shouldn't do things like that. Definitely don't go into debt for that. However, if all of our purchases or expenditures outside of just basic living are for fun and games and recreation, then you might want to change that kind of thinking, because a lot of those things aren't going to do you a dang bit of good when crap really hits the fan. I think we're very close to that point where we see some kind of economic collapse, a collapse of the grid. Everybody, it's like these electric cars are such a big thing, and you see them everywhere. Well, where do they think they're getting the electricity? Now, some people say, well, I have solar. Well, unless you have a battery backup, your solar's just going into the power grid. That's where it goes. Anything your home generates just goes back to Rocky Mountain, and you get credits, and then they in turn give it back to you, and then you are using, to charge your car or, power your house or anything else. The problem is the bulk of electricity from Rocky Mountain, if you don't have a battery backup or for your solar system, it's coming from coal. And here you're thinking that you're saving the planet by driving an electric car. You just have to be careful on these things. And you'll hear of the government saying, by this year, 2032, we're not going to have any more gas-operated vehicles. It's all going to be electric. Well, where are you going to get the electricity to do that? I predict power shortages and outages in the next couple of years as this increase and this focus of the government enforcing, giving credit scores, all these kind of things to people that buy electric or use electric. And another thing you'll see is how controlled the government is on the people. So every decision that comes, particularly from the federal government, will be to curtail people's freedoms. So electric car only has, 200-300 mile range. That's interesting. Then you got to find a place to charge it. Very restrictive, very restrictive. It's to shrink your ability to move and to experience others. They want to have you in these little smart cities. Well, the smart city isn't like just everything being operated where you can just have an app and do this and this and this. It really is to control the population of the people based on your social credit score. So yeah, we'll open your door to your home if you've, do all these things. But you'll be limited to where you can travel and do. I know it sounds like fantasy or this or that, but it's already happening. It's already happening. Home ownership is just shrinking. They want in a cubicle, small place, and in a situation where you don't have a car, you're totally dependent on, government transportation, government education, government medicine, government food, you name it. That's this kind of control. And if you think about it, my son brought this up. It would be the opposite of Christ and his one world government, if you will, where he is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Satan would have an imposter. He'd be an imposter to that. And instead of agency and beauty and freedom and liberty and the good of the earth for everybody, it would be just the opposite. A few elites control the masses, and that's where we're at. Okay, now we're just going to talk real briefly about just the last chapter in our reading of this week. So there's so much to talk about, but I know so many of you listen and watch YouTube channels or listen to podcasts on Come Follow Me, and they go into a lot of detail, and I am not here to compete with those individuals, and they're awesome. But I like it where Peter makes his first visit to Joppa, and there's so much significance. Sue and I went to Joppa in, I think it was either October or November of last fall. And it's right on the Mediterranean. It's beautiful port city, Joppa, the ancient city of Joppa. And this is where Jonah in the Old Testament, and think of the similarities here. So you have Simon Bar Jonah, or son of Jonah. And then you have Jonah. Remember that? Blessed art thou, Simon Bar Jonah, for flesh and blood have not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. Simon Bar Jonah. And then Jonah. So you have similar names, and you have Jonah going to Joppa to escape his prophetic call to go to Nineveh and preach the gospel to a Gentile nation. And this is where Peter, son of Jonah, goes, and he goes to the Simon the tanner. And we're going to get into that next week. But this is the beginning of that. And it's so cool because this is where he gets his vision of taking the gospel to the world. So we're really going to be excited to talk about that, and I'll talk about that in another video. But there's just some really cool things that happen in Joppa. If you ever get to Israel, I've been there previously a couple of times, and I didn't go to the city of Joppa. It's a must. It's a must. And there's even a place where it's been venerated to some degree, a little place of Simon the Tanner, and you can visualize in your mind not only Jonah being there, and Jonah went down to Joppa, he went down in the ship, and then he went down in the belly of the fish, of the whale. He went so far down to get away from his assignment, and it just doesn't work. God will find us wherever we try to escape to. But then Peter goes there, and he gets his call. So it's really cool to see the similarities there. Well, God bless. I love you all. Thank you for your prayers and your continued support for this channel. It's just awesome. It's not a big channel, but it's very meaningful to me to have you good folks listening, commenting, and sharing your thoughts and ideas, because I learned so much from them. I can become disagreeable, and I don't really apologize for that, but I do apologize for being kind of snarky sometimes. A lot of it's just the mood I'm in, and I've done so much better. If you would have known me a couple of years ago, I'm getting better, but I still have moments where if I disagree with you sometimes, and if I'm in a mood, man, I'll just fire off something like, yeah, I totally disagree with your crap that you're saying, you know, something like that. So just be patient. I'm patient. I'll be more patient. You be more patient, and we'll find places that we agree on, and then respectfully share our reasons why we don't agree, or we have. I do want to cover on a future video this idea that everybody makes it to the celestial kingdom in the highest degree. It's don't believe it. Don't think it's scriptural. But we'll do that in another video. God bless. Talk to you soon. Bye.